When the month of October comes around, some of my friends are starting to get in the vibe of Halloween and start to watch a lot of horror movies. I am not a fan of horror, but I get their enthusiasm. I, on the other hand, if I have to choose a movie to watch this time of the year, I would rather choose something classic or unconventional, or rather a little bit of both. There are not too many movies to choose from, but there is one that, if you think about it, might be truly terrifying. The Birds, a classic film directed by none other than Alfred Hitchcock. A film released in 1963 starring Tippi Hedren, Rod Taylor, Jessica Tandy and Suzanne Pleshette. A film that has a simple premise. Suddenly, out of nowhere, the birds are starting to attack people. The film is based on a short story written by Daphne du Maurier from 1952, but it was altered and modified at Hitchcock's request by the screenwriter Evan Hunter. So you might say that the film is loosely based on the original short story. The film got a huge popularity among the years, and it is considered one of the greatest horror films of all time. But my question after watching the movie is, how is it possible for someone to think of a story like this and make it so scary with such a simple context? I will try to focus solely on the film. I do not know the short story and I do not think that I will try to read it pretty soon. I do not have a fear of birds, but the context of the film scares me because this thing might happen in real life out of nowhere. Oh wait, it did happen. But I'm writing my thoughts way too fast now. I'm gonna try to take my pace and analyze this film as best as I can. And the first thing that comes into my mind regarding this film is Hitchcock's evil genius to control the suspense and manipulate the viewer's fears as he pleases. I have seen other movies made by Hitchcock. I kinda started to see his pattern in certain moments, the way he makes you feel attached to a certain character and then he totally changes the focus of the film. Or when he starts the film slowly and then truly he starts to escalate the rhythm of the story to a point the viewer is overwhelmed. From what I have seen, this film presents his methods extremely well from beginning to the end. From the first moments of the film, Hitchcock is raising the tension pretty high, making the viewer focused and ready for when something might happen. From what I have read, Hitchcock intentionally wanted this. Think about it. You saw the trailer of the film, you know the synopsis, you know what this film is about, but you do not know when everything may start to happen. It might be right at the beginning of the film, it might be at the end, at the middle, it might not be at all. Then Hitchcock decides to make the viewer watch this beautiful story between a man and a woman and the romantic shenanigans, and how they play this beautiful game of run and hide with their feelings. Do not misunderstand me, please. The story is beautifully built and the chemistry between the characters is quite perfect. But Hitchcock is trying to make the viewer forget about the main plot of the film. And when he might think the viewer is comfortable enough in his chair watching the movie, he starts to send small moments one after another until the true main plot of the movie begins and chaos is ensued in the story. Suspense, fear, and the unexpected. Those are Hitchcock's weapons for this film and he is using them at maximum. Yes, Hitchcock is known as the master of suspense and in his career he used this thing extremely well in his movies to get the viewer be absorbed by the magic of his stories and his incredible cinematic style. But I think this movie might be that one good example when you talk about how he plays with the viewer's minds and expectations. Hitchcock just sits there behind the camera and waits for the viewer to react to his stories. He knows how and when he might scare the viewers off, and he loves that. In a 2-hour-long movie, there are a lot of things that could be presented. When you have a film that long and moreover you add in the mix a unique and intriguing cinematic style, things are gonna get interesting pretty fast. As I said earlier, the film initially presents a story that looks like it does not have its place in the context at all. If we analyze the film shot by shot, you have the intro of the film in which Hitchcock makes sure the viewers know what has to come next and gives this sensation of an attack ready to come out of nowhere. And then the film shows you an ordinary woman who crosses the street in which her attention goes to a flock of birds. So from this point on, Hitchcock starts to plant the seeds of a beautiful story. The woman in question, Melanie, goes into a shop and is looking for some birds she ordered. Okay, the symbolistics start right from the get-go. This is something that is quite common in cinema and especially in Hitchcock's cinematic style. From here on, a romantic play between Melanie and a man called Mitch starts, a game in which they tease each other and are trying to surprise each other in interesting ways. He asks about lovebirds, and from here on, the movie begins. All this game between Melanie and Mitch, in which she takes the two lovebirds and she is going after Mitch to surprise him, even going further to Bodega Bay after him in order to make this play more interesting, is something that takes the viewer's mind totally from the initial idea of killer birds who are gonna attack any time now. Hitchcock plays with the mind of the viewer so well, the viewer does not even realize this thing. Then the film changes its style, its rhythm and its feeling quite drastically, and the moment the birds are gonna attack is game on for anything. What I totally liked from a narrative perspective is the sudden change in the style. From a romantic, beautiful, simple film, Hitchcock takes you instantly in a horror and scary place and keeps you there, escalating the attacks further and further. Each attack is different, which makes the context be more dangerous than it was. From a single attack of a seagull, to a home invasion of sparrows, to a total crow attack on children, to a deadly and destructive attack on the people of Bodega Bay that causes explosion and death, the story takes the viewer into a roller coaster of emotions shot by shot, without letting the viewer realize what happened. The tension created while the viewer watches the film is incredible, from many points of view. As I said, the viewer already knows what this film is about from a trailer or a synopsis or from different opinions, so you expect something is gonna happen. But how Hitchcock directed the film and played with the viewer's minds from the moment the viewer decided to watch the film, and then the viewer watches the film and the attacks are gonna start, the emotional impact is uncanny. Usually in a film like this one, you expect an evil force or a villain to be the main negative force that drives the story of the film, and naturally you expect a resolution, a fix, you expect an explanation for everything that happened. But in this case, in this film, after everything that happened, the viewer just might want to get out of there in an instant, and Hitchcock knows that. The ending of the film is made in such a way that reflects this instinct perfectly. The characters, and thus the viewer, do not get an explanation for what happened. It just did. And after all the chaos and panic created, characters leave that place, leaving the possible danger behind there. It is a natural reaction to everything that happened, and in my opinion, the way the mystery of the bird attacks is presented is what makes this film so scary. You do not know why everything happened, you do not have a chance to stop the chaos, and the only thing that you can do is to run away to save yourself. It gives you chills down the spine if you think about it. There are many themes and patterns that could be recognized when someone watches this film. After all, the film's director is Alfred Hitchcock, so there are some things that could feel familiar for those who know his filmography. The main character is a blonde woman, so the pattern of a Hitchcock blonde is presented perfectly from the first minutes of the film. There is a narrative moment that might bring the idea of a romantic triangle during the story, a thing that apparently is one of Hitchcock's things to play with the intrigue and the suspense from time to time in his movies. The already classical character who is overwhelmed by a motherly dominance is present in the film, only this time I like that the mother of the character is not a bad influence or a bad reason for the character to be affected, it's just a mother who is scared of being left alone and forgotten. However, a character that has maternal issues is presented in the role of Melanie, and honestly, I like this sharing method of this theme between Mitch and Melanie with Mitch's mother Lydia. Maybe Lydia's character was represented after all as the possessive mother for Mitch and was hostile towards the woman from his life, but in the end, she was not left alone. It is implied she got another child who will take care of her sometime, probably in the future. Melanie. Hitchcock uses recurrent themes in his movies, but he knows how to use them differently somehow. Whether you may realize the idea or not, in every movie that he made, the concepts feel a bit fresh, and Hitchcock is molding the concept well on each story he directs. Of course, the similarity between his movies becomes obvious, and as long as you may see more movies from his filmography, you start to realize a pattern, but this is his style, it is okay, I think, most of the time. What was an important element for this film was the symbolism behind the lovebirds. Those two little birds, stuck in the cage, were presented as the reason the romantic game between Mitch and Melanie started. And as Mitch's sister, Kathy, is presenting at the end of the film, those two lovebirds are the only ones who did no harm, so they were saved and taken by Kathy with them when they left. I thought a lot about their meaning of what might they represent in the story, and the only thing that I could think of was that they are a representation of Mitch's and Melanie's love, of how they are or might be stuck in a domestic setting, safe from the terrors and dangers of the world. It probably means something else, and I think of their love because they were used like a flirt initially. But if we use this concept and we see the fact the lovebirds were saved from that hostile environment, I think it might be pretty sure to say their love will be okay after everything that happened. The film has a lot of themes and a lot of messages, and I like that. It makes the film quite interesting, but with all those themes, the powerful impact of how the film is made is gonna stick in the viewer's mind. In the case of this film, the themes do not matter that much. They matter, but the impact will remain the birds' attacks and the cinematography that will make the film memorable. Yes, the cinematography is, I think, the most important part of the film. Let's face it, the film is memorable because of how it is made and how it presents the context. Regarding how it is filmed, the film is shot quite basic. It does not present too many elements that will show a type of filming that is totally incredible. You want to see the character doing something, you see the character. You want to see the reaction of a character, you see a reaction. You want to see a creepy shot in which the birds are placed near the character, the film has a wide shot in which this context is presented. The true element of this film is the way it is edited. The suspense, the horror and the shock comes from this. There are moments that channel those things in the viewer's mind in a way that makes it wanna jump from its seat. I remember two distinct moments that channel the suspense and makes the viewer fear for what might come. The scene from the school in which Melanie is waiting for Mitch's sister, Kathy, to take her home in case another attack might happen. And you see that a great number of crows are gathering shot by shot in the playground for a possible attack, is making the panic more intense because you expect that something bad might happen. But when you see all those crows gathered, you know it will be terrible. And another scene is the scene in which the birds are attacking a man near a gas station. And from there, the chaos is installed in the town with explosions and attacks one right after another, making the intensity of the moments being extremely scary. The entire editing process of this film is made that way. It starts slow and Hitchcock is taking your attention as a viewer from time to time to something that is becoming dangerous. And he does not do anything complicated. There are simple shots, but the way he is using them is the scary part. You expect to see the birds near the characters ready to attack. And yes, Hitchcock is showing you a wide shot with all the birds around the character, making the viewer not only feel suspense and fear, but also making them ready to expect something bad might happen, even if nothing will. It is a fair thing to say here also about the special effects, which are quite well made because some shots that were filmed are truly terrifying. That shot from the sky with the explosion in the city and the birds who are getting ready to attack has a realistic touch to it, even though the viewer realizes it is made with special effects. Yes, I know Hitchcock used real birds in his shots to attack the character, but still, the effects are extremely well made, they are terrifying. The bird attacks are also made in such a way to make the viewer be there somehow in the attack. And even though sometimes the viewer might see the models and realize it is a practical effect from time to time, it is not a problem at all. The editing method of this film enhances the practical effects, so the magic of the film, the one that Hitchcock wanted to be on the silver screen, does its job perfectly. As for the soundtrack of the film, there is none. Or at least I do not remember hearing something as a soundtrack in this film, only the sound of the birds. Hitchcock is using those sounds continuously to induce the viewer that sensation of fear and suspense. He starts the film with that sound during the generic intro, and then when the time is right, this sound comes back and from what I realized, becomes the most important sound on the shot. It does not matter if the characters are talking or something else is happening in the shot. The sound of crows and birds is taking priority, giving in the viewer's mind the required terror and sensation for a horrific experience. With those methods of work, I am not surprised Hitchcock is known as the master of suspense. Sure, there are other movies that might come into the viewer's mind more quickly when someone might think of his filmography, like Psycho or Vertigo or The Rope, depending on the viewer's knowledge, but from what I have seen, I think Hitchcock perfected his skill and achieved his ideas much better in this film. With other movies, you might expect an outcome or resolution in which the good and truth will prevail, or you might know what happens because of the context or the narrative evolution of the film, but with this one, he broke his conventional methods and somehow knew what the viewer might want in that context, to just get out of there, a thing that on which, as we saw, he modeled the ending of the film. For a film made in the 1960s, The Birds is quite an interesting lesson in the creation of a horror experience. It is different and it makes sure to feel like a very different movie. With what is happening in its story and how the film is made, I can say that its cinematography is memorable. There is something I have to say though regarding the credibility of this movie. At the beginning of the video I said that a similar event happened in real life. Apparently, from what I have read, back in 1961, in the town of Capitola, California, a similar attack had happened. Back then the people didn't know why the attack happened, but later it was discovered that the birds were affected by a toxin from red algae called domoic acid. Hitchcock was a frequent visitor of the nearby locations of that town back in the day, so he got some ideas from this real event and implemented them into this film. I have read that there is a reference in the film to this real life event when the characters are talking about a similar event that happened a previous year in Santa Cruz, but I didn't catch it, or more correctly, I didn't know it was a reference or a hint to the real life attack. Now, after what I have read about this film, with what short novel is based on and the real life event that was an inspiration to this film, I have to think what exactly was in Hitchcock's mind when he decided why he wanted this film to be made. I mean, yes, it is an intriguing context for a horror film and a film that, let's face it, it could be a challenge for anyone to make it. But if you think about it, the context is truly terrifying. Not only something like this can happen anywhere, anytime, but it happened, of course, at a much normal scale, not with all the destructive and killing elements. But it happened. I know I do not want to experience such a moment. And yes, you might say that, yeah, the film was a bit inspired from the real-life attack, but let's not forget the short story was released 11 years prior to the film, 9 years prior to the Capitola event, so the question remains. If I have to realize an answer or a reason for it, I think that this mystery of natural unexpected terror fascinates everyone who might want to create stories. As I said, a film in which a fantastic enemy or a real-life context in which a human is the problem are controllable most of the time and present an answer for it, to understand the story. When it comes to nature, the mystery will remain, and if you know it, there is nothing you can do to stop it. Probably from this thing, I feel like The Birds might be one of the greatest horror films ever made. I said it before, I will say it again and again. I am not a fan of horror movies, I do not like them at all. Sometimes I do watch very old horror movies more from a professional approach, but from time to time I do appreciate a unique idea in a genre that is not my favorite. This film is one of those movies that I appreciate. The context frightens me to death. It is uncomfortable to watch in certain moments because I feel it becomes way too real, but thanks to the way it is created and the way the story is thought and presented, I can appreciate it as a very good film. Hitchcock is a master of making the viewer jump from the chair and making the viewer intrigued by what is on the silver screen, so probably this was one of the things that made me want to rewatch this film. Every film made by this director is like a lesson in the art of cinema, but this film has it. It has anything that could make a film be a perfect horror, without too many scary elements, just with the magic of the shots and the context. Simplicity is the perfect choice for the art sometimes, and this film might be a good example for this concept.